Part 57. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 562. Not long after Nanfan and others waited, two streams of light were approaching quickly outside the great ruins. Big Black Dog and Long Xuanhuan have returned. Junior brother Xuanhuan, you are back. How is the battle situation? Nanfan stepped forward to ask questions, and everyone was also very concerned. Long Xuanhuan borrows the power of the real dragon to fight against the heretics, which is definitely a big event. The heretics have been killed. Long Xuanhuan opened his mouth and told what happened before and after. Suddenly, Duguyuking and others were quite shocked. Kunpeng town has been so tyrannical for eternity. It's a pity, a generation of peerless strong men. It turns out that the fish in the pond are so fierce. Just one scale can kill heretics. The battle Long Xuanhuan experienced this time was definitely the most dangerous among many disciples. After all, confront the heretic. Junior brother Xuanhuan, don't worry. Since Master asked you to find Kunpeng, he should have anticipated everything. Nanfan comforted. Long Xuanhuan also nodded. By the way, where is junior brother Dade? Why hasn't he come back? At this time, Zhang Li suddenly asked. Long Xuanhuan looked a little complicated and said. Junior brother Dade, he still needs to hurry up. Immediately, he told what the big black dog did to Wu Dade. A group of people were even more stunned. How cruel. Dehe is so fierce. They had to sigh. Okay, let's go back. Nanfang opened his mouth and was about to set off. He looked at Ziling and said. Ziling, can you take all these monsters away? Ziling thought for a while and said. Okay, just now I used reality as the scroll. Now I need to draw it again. Just continue to use rice paper as the scroll. After all, real space cannot be taken away. Dehe immediately raised his claws and used his magic power, which immediately enveloped countless monsters in the field. No. My spiritual consciousness was cut off, no, BAA. The big black dog wiped out the spiritual consciousness of millions of monsters in the field. Now, they have become pure birds and beasts. For a time, the starry sky was simply spectacular, with chickens, ducks, cattle, sheep, etc. flying everywhere. Ziling also picked up a pen and prepared to paint. However, as soon as she lifted the pen, millions of monsters suddenly disappeared. Completely disappeared. Everyone was shocked. When they turned around, they saw that Yun 11 had finished painting a painting. Her face was full of excitement and she said. Painting is so fun, Sister Ziling, I've learned it too. Ziling was surprised when she saw this. Yun 11's speed at learning painting was really terrifying. Although he is still not on par with Ziling, his attainments are already considerable. Sister Yungzi's understanding is terrifying. Tisk, when we fight in the future, there will be another person who is not a human being. Everyone was filled with emotion. The big black dog's eyes were a little frightened, and he whispered to himself. Wow, she is indeed a woman who has perfected all the ways in the world. It's so terrifying. The first time it saw Yun 11, it was quite frightened, because it knew too much, so it became even more frightened. For details, please see chapter 209, have a great feast. Please call me the heart that loves to fill holes. Later, as they got along with each other, it was no longer so afraid. Now that Yun 11 showed some traces of the past, it became frightened again. Let's go, it's time to go back. Nanfang spoke. Elder sister. At this time, Tianlinger spoke to Xianning, and she said aggrievedly. I'm hungry. Linger works so hard, can you give Linger something to eat? Linger wants to become stronger and avenge his grandfather. Her big, watery eyes were filled with hope. Xianning thought about it and realized that Tianlinger's recent performance was pretty good. And the eldest brother said before that he could take her back to the village to have a look. Okay, let's go with my sister. Xianning spoke immediately. Hearing this, Tianlinger was extremely happy, jumping up and down, and said, "Great, Linger has something to eat." Seeing this, everyone also smiled. Although Tianlinger looked silly, but she was still quite cute. "Let's go, I can't wait any longer. There are so many prey waiting for salvation. Go back to the village and have a feast." Immediately, everyone left together shouting, with joyful anticipation on their faces. The people of the Muling dynasty and the Yun family were speechless for a long time as they watched this scene. Sometimes I just doubt that they are fighting heretics, cultivating, etc., and the main purpose is to hold a banquet. Yun Yinchan was in a daze. He felt that the expressions on these people's faces when they mentioned the opening of the banquet were simply happier than breaking through to the Divine Lord. Absolutely. Master Yun, I think you can be more confident. There is no need to doubt that they are just a bunch of foodies. Mu Wanking also spoke. Immediately, the great ruins realm shouted gold and retreated their troops. This battle was very rewarding. Mu Wanking and Yun Yinchan have both entered the realm of divine masters, and strong men such as Yun Qianshan have made great progress. There are more high-end combat capabilities in the Great Ruins realm. Returning to the Degzi realm, Yungzi and others kept throwing the monsters and beasts in the paintings into the Degzi realm while flying across the sky. There were indeed too many monster prey caught this time. But many of them, the meat quality is not up to standard. After screening, they decided to keep only demon beasts above the demon lord level, leaving other demon beasts to grow freely in the Great Ruins realm to enrich species diversity. So, on this day, monsters fell from the sky one after another, and the cultivators in the Great Ruins realm were shocked. At the same time, Nanfan also left some demonic beasts with great potential to the Muling dynasty and the Yun family to tame them into war beasts. The strength of the two major forces will be greatly enhanced. Among them, there are also 20 Demon Lord level war beasts selected by the Big Black Dog. And at this moment, the vast universe has calmed down. For the common people, everything that happened on this day was like a big dream. On their home planet, they suddenly felt a suffocating panic, and then disappeared. After the calm, they might be confused or frightened, but they were destined to be unable to know that they had just missed destruction on this day. And somewhere in the desolate universe, in the space where divine light intersects. This is a space constructed with the principles of Tao, which can allow powerful gods to stay safely without affecting the universe. At this moment, in this space, 8 powerful figures appeared. All of them are divine kings. Their faces were extremely solemn. Something big must have happened in this universe. One of them murmured, "God King, he is right to ask us to come here. It's just that it's too shocking. The world-destroying Qi just now made us tremble and unable to control ourselves. Why is there no strong person in the divine realm to reflect the heavens? Maybe, I don't dare." They guessed, but there was a hint of fear in their eyes. The things in this universe seem to be beyond the reach of their level. Since the lower realm, weird things have happened one after another. A few days ago, Xin Mi was inexplicably in a state of death. Now this situation has happened again. I am afraid that the Tianji formation cannot be activated for the time being. Another person spoke. Everyone looked at each other. Brother Wang Qian, what do you think? Finally, their eyes converged on a middle-aged man. This man was dressed in robes and listened to everyone's discussion with a calm face, but never said a word. At this moment, he was looking at the Star Destroyer God Lord lying in the sacred law. The Star Destroyer God Lord has fallen into a state of death. The 8 gods have tried all kinds of methods, but they can't save his life. At this moment, even though there are divine laws, the Star Destroyer God Lord is still dying, his hands are twitching uncontrollably, and he is foaming at the mouth. This state has continued since they discovered the unconscious seeing me. According to speculation, the soul of the Star Destroyer God Lord has suffered a great terror and will be erased bit by bit. The pain is like being cut into pieces by 1,000 knives. Until the soul is completely wiped out, the Star Destroyer God Lord will be gone. I have a hunch. After a long time, the Divine Lord Xuanhuan slowly spoke and said, "Perhaps, there may be a connection between Seeing Me's murderous attack and the terrible events that happened today. We may have encountered something strange and ominous unintentionally, but we don't even know it." Hearing this, the air in the arena became heavy. Report to the God King. Such a big thing is beyond our ability to deal with it. Moreover, the heavenly secret formation requires 10 divine kings to activate it. Now it is missing 2 people and cannot continue. Everyone nodded. Wrong. At this time, a divine king next to him suddenly looked surprised and said, "Just received the news. The God King, this old man, has personally descended to the realm with the secrets and calculations of heaven." In his hand, a jade talisman shimmered. Hearing this, the expressions of many gods in the scene changed drastically. The God King went down to the realm in person. "I went to have barbecue. If the barbecue is delicious, there will be another chapter at 12 o'clock. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert." Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 563. Holy Area. The jutting that emerged calmed down after the terrifying energy in the lower realm disappeared. There are endless discussions about the lower realm in the divine realm. Almost everyone is paying attention. Some people say that there is an immortal demon who is about to return and will fight against the divine realm again. Some people say that during the war between demons and gods, those giants who had attacked the divine domain were unwilling to accept it and were planning an attack. Others say that the monkey suppressed under the 5 Elements mountain of the Brahma sect in the west is about to lift the 5 Elements mountain. There were different opinions, causing a certain degree of panic. However, soon in the 33rd heaven, a big man's oracle came down. The disaster in the lower realm has been resolved, and heaven will send the God King to the lower realm. As soon as the oracle came out, the divine realm suddenly became quiet. The lower realm of the God King, this is the first time since the end of the demon-god war. It doesn't matter, the God King's lower realm can pacify all realms. It seems that the lower realm is nothing to worry about. The commotion in the divine realm was immediately suppressed by this news. God King. These 2 words are enough to suppress everything. Even in the divine realm, the divine king is already an existence that the world needs to worship, and the divine king is the limit that ordinary people can know. These 2 words represent an unparalleled height. When the divine king comes out, the world will be at peace. Now that a God King has descended to the lower realm, everything can be calmed down. And above the divine realm, the Nantianmen is wide open. Today, several terrifying beings arrived at Nantianmen. The Nantian Gate stands on the 33rd level of the sky and is the key location of the Heavenly Court. Imperial Court. Since the war between demons and gods, the Imperial Court has never been opened again. Now, several powerful beings are present here, presenting jade letters. There has been a change in the lower realm. After investigation, it is located in the 49th star region, guarding the God King Tianji. Please order me to incarnate in the lower realm to investigate the disaster. The leader shouted loudly. In front of the Nantian Gate, a powerful golden armored god general appeared and took over the jade letter. Shortly after, open the heavenly gate and allow God King to descend to the realm. The golden armored god will return. On that day, the heavenly gates will be opened, and a generation of God King Tianji will incarnate in the lower world to detect disasters. The 49th star field. At this moment, endless fluctuations are coming from the sky. The boundary wall is wide open, and there are golden divine ladders, falling from the top of Jushan, extending into this vast star field. An old man in a wide robe and long sleeves descended step by step from the sacred ladder. He stands among the stars. As he glanced around, it was as if billions of stars had turned into pieces of tissue paper in his eyes. His eyes were purple. On his old face, his purple eyes were like eternal gems, containing invincible energy that could dominate the world. Behind him, there was a middle-aged man in grey robe. The golden divine ladder slowly disappeared. The middle-aged man in grey robe smiled slightly and said, "The King of Gods descended to the lower realm this time. It's just right and it's really wonderful." The heavenly God King said indifferently, "I am here to save the common people." The middle-aged man in grey robe saluted respectfully and said, "Certainly." The heavenly God King waved his hand, and in an instant, the two of them disappeared from the place. The next moment, the heavenly God King had arrived in a sacred space. This place is where the Divine Lord of Xuanhuan and others are located. Welcome the God King. Welcome the God King. The 8 great gods had already felt this, and they all walked out at this moment and knelt down to wait. The heavenly God King nodded indifferently, a glimmer of light flashed in his purple eyes, and said, "Seeing me was robbed." He waved his hand, and the Star Destroyer God King, who was unconscious in the sacred light, suddenly appeared in front of the Tianji God King. Reporting to God King, half a month ago, Seeing Luo God Lord tried to help his younger brother Seeing Luo to attain enlightenment. However, it failed. Seeing Luo was defeated. "I'm waiting, at our wits' end." The Divine Lord of all heavens opened his mouth and sighed. Divine light shot out from Tianji Divine King's purple eyes. At this moment, he directly saw through the soul of Star Destroyer Divine Lord. He saw that the soul of Lord Star Destroyer was clearly riddled with holes, as if it had been injured by an extremely terrifying aura. What kind of breath is this? The Tianji God King's expression changed slightly, and he immediately used the power of the God King to deduce it. On Seeing Me's body, there seemed to be a trace of non-existent yellow smoke flashing. The heavenly God King was suddenly shocked, his pupils shrank. He immediately stopped his hand and said in shock, "It's actually this thing." Many divine kings are extremely dignified. "God King, what is this?" the Divine Lord of all heavens asked. However, the Tianji Divine King had a confused expression on his face and did not answer for a while. Behind him came a middle-aged man in grey robe, but at this moment he smiled slightly and said, "If I guess correctly, this kind of thing involves reincarnation." Hearing this, Xuanhuan Divine Lord and others were even more shocked. Reincarnation. The middle-aged man in grey robe said leisurely, "It is recorded in ancient books that yellow smoke rises, and the beacon fire calms down, reincarnation comes, and ghosts wander in the sky, haha, but it's a pity that reincarnation is just a dream, which only makes the genius think." Hearing this, Tianji God King looked at him and said, "You mean?" The middle-aged man in grey robe said, "There is no reincarnation for eternity, and there is no underworld in this world. This is a public opinion. However, there have been at least 2 times in the world about reincarnation and the turmoil caused by the underworld. Once, everyone knows that there was a big shot in the imperial court who left the imperial court and pursued reincarnation. According to legend, this big shot once established a mysterious force called underworld. Another time, among the ghosts, there was an ultimate giant who faked the bridge of reincarnation in an attempt to extradite the ghosts, but it caused a great chaos." Hearing this, the heavenly God King had some understanding and said, "I understand. What you mean is that although there is no real reincarnation in the world, the underworld and the ghostly reincarnation bridge, all have that kind of atmosphere. And Seeing Me was probably injured by one of them." The middle-aged man in grey robe nodded and said, "The King of Gods is wise. If you want to save him, maybe you can only find people from these two major forces. However, when Tianji God King heard this, he did not hesitate. He raised his hand, and in an instant, Star Destroyer God King's body froze and turned into countless light spots. He completely destroyed the Star Destroyer God Lord. Seeing this, everyone's expressions changed drastically. The Heavenly God King is too decisive. It should be noted that the Star Destroyer God Lord was one of his most loyal subordinates before. Now it has lost its use value, but has been ruthlessly killed. Whether it's the one in the Imperial Court, the underworld created after running away, or the reincarnation bridge in the ghost world, the background is too big. The Heavenly God King was very direct and said, additional distractions will only interfere with important matters. The faces of Wang Kai and Shenjun and others were stern. The God King is actually afraid of this. The middle-aged man in grey robe nodded and said, understood. The Heavenly God King said, this time in the lower realm, there is only one purpose. Find the traces of the Creator Supreme. His purple eyes exuded an unparalleled light and said, I have felt that the 49th star field has completely returned to peace. Do you know what this means? The middle-aged man in grey robe thought for a moment, then understood, and said, the thing that alarmed the 9 cauldrons in the divine realm before was probably a disaster left over from the Calamity era. And before the Imperial Court moved, the 49th star territory has returned to tranquility. This means that other beings have suppressed the disaster. The ones who can do this, maybe only have the handwriting left by the Creator Supremes. The Heavenly God King smiled and said, as expected of the Tianji Shenshu Dao Wuwei, do you know what to do next? The middle-aged man in grey robe said with humanity. Wei understands. The 49th star field is divided into 8 sub-star fields, with a total of 8 directions of heaven. And if such a big thing happened between heaven and earth, heaven must have sensed it. According to the original plan, by setting up the divine formation of heavenly secrets, we can communicate with the heavens in all directions and use them for our own use. At that time, everything the God King wants to know, will come to light. He said, paused, and said. However, the heavenly secret formation requires 10 divine kings, but now there are only 8 left. The heavenly secret formation can only use the power of a God King. The God Lord is too weak and cannot handle it, the God King is too strong and has too much karma. It just so happens that the Divine Lord possesses the Tao fruit recognized by heaven and earth, and can communicate with the way of heaven without involving too many causes and effects. Therefore, even if one of the 10 divine kings is missing, it will not work. The Tianji God King's face darkened. There are many divine kings in the divine realm, but too few can be trusted. What he is doing is top secret and must not be known to others. This is indeed a difficult problem. Amitabha, this young monk has come to pay homage to fellow Taoists from the divine realm. At this time, outside this sacred space, a sound of Buddha singing suddenly sounded. Good night. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 564. A King Buddha's chant rang out in the starry sky, and the Tianji Divine King immediately turned his head to look at the starry sky. His purple eyes shone brightly, and there was murderous intent in his eyes. Western Brahma religion. Did the other party discover his plan? The Tianji God King's face was extremely gloomy. King of gods, please do not be angry. Anyone who comes is not an enemy. At this time, Tianji Divine Calculator Dao Wuwei calculated with his fingers, and suddenly spoke, with a smile on his lips, and said, it must be fate. Tianji God King was slightly confused. Everyone looked around and saw a monk stepping on the waves in the cold void. The void is like the sea, and he crosses the endless galaxy. Every step he takes, there are golden lotuses blooming under his feet, which is incomparably magical. In the blink of an eye, the monk had arrived in front of this sacred space. He was dressed in a light white cassock, and his face was pure and clear, without any trace of fireworks. He clasped his hands together and said with a smile on his lips, "The young monk has paid his respects to the King of Heaven." A scrutinizing and fearful light flashed in the purple eyes of the heavenly God King, and he said, "When did the Bodhisattva of the Brahma religion appear in the star field under my command? Isn't this against the rules? The divine realm governs 9,000 star realms, while the Brahma religion has 3,000 Buddha realms. Although the relationship between the two parties has always been quite close, especially in the past when they worked together to exterminate demons and slay demons, on the border, after all, the water that enters the river does not violate the river." The hand of the Brahma religion quietly reached into the 49th star field. Moreover, the person who came was a bodhisattva. The bodhisattvas of the Brahma religion are in the same order as the divine kings of the divine domain. This made Tianji God King full of doubts. Liao Chen smiled slightly and said, "God King of the heavens, I, the Buddha, traveled across the world and knew that there was a great difficulty here, so I sent the world here." The heavenly God King sneered and said, "I, the God King of Tianji, command this star field. What kind of disaster is there? Even if there is a big trouble, why do you need me?" Liao Chen leisurely said, "Although the God King is invincible in the world, sometimes two arhats are still needed, right? The arhat in the Western Brahma religion is of the same level as the divine king." Hearing this, the Tianji God King's expression changed slightly. The other party really knew about the Tianji formation. The matter of the heavenly secret formation was leaked. He couldn't help but glance at Tianji Xuanhuan Daowei, with a hint of coldness in his eyes. Tianji Xuanhuan is the only person who may leak this matter. Daowei seemed to have understood what Tianji Divine King was thinking. He smiled bitterly and said, "Brahma Buddha is indeed a man of great fortune. I am a member of the Tianji Xuanhuan family, and there is a page of Taoist scriptures that is extremely mysterious, floating in the world, and cannot be obtained by anyone without great luck. It seems that in this life, this page of Taoist scriptures has been obtained by the West." Hearing this, the Tianji God King's eyes narrowed slightly. There is indeed a legend about the Tianji divine calculation lineage. The founder of this lineage once had a chance to obtain a page of Taoist canon, which contained the supreme secret of Tianji divine calculation. However, no one can possess this page of Taoist treasures. It wanders around the world and is often known to those who are destined to know it. This is a secret known to everyone in the divine realm. If this is the case, no wonder the West Heaven Brahma sect can spy on everything here. When Liao Chen heard this, he said with a smile, "My Buddha and the God of Heaven are of the same lineage, and indeed we have some predestined connections." "Admitted. What do you want to do?" the heavenly God King immediately asked in a deep voice. Bodhisattva smiled slightly and said, "Buddha saves destined people, God King, we are destined. We are willing to open this great secret formation with you, how about it?" "Of course, we won't take anything from this place," the heavenly God King said coldly. "Oh? When did Zishan start doing charity? You came all the way here just to help us and you have nothing else to ask for. I'm afraid what you want is unimaginable, right? He is by no means an easy person to deal with, and he knows that Zishan Brahma tutor has so many tricks, and he will never have no agenda." The Bodhisattva thought for a moment and said, "If the young monk doesn't tell the truth, the God King will never believe it, that's all. King God, do you still remember the demon King Zhesing, son of the six-eared macaque clan, who was pinned down by our Buddha at the foot of the Five Elements mountain during the Demon God War?" The Tianji God King's expression changed slightly. It seemed that this name made him quite afraid, and he couldn't help but said with emotion. Of course, in the past, that monkey used a sea-fixing needle to hit the divine realm and lost his voice, and almost forced him to the imperial court. Liao Chen said. If I tell the God King that Xuanhuan was originally just an extremely weak little monkey in the six-eared macaque clan, and he only heard a story accidentally when he grew to this stage, can the God King believe it? The heavenly God King was stunned for a moment, his face filled with disbelief. A weak little monkey among the six-eared macaque tribe, because he accidentally heard a story, he grew up into a terrifying monster? This is simply a fantasy. I don't believe it, even if I listen to the being in the imperial court preaching for 100,000 years, I still can't transform to that point. Just a story? Isn't the Bodhisattva kidding? The heavenly God King spoke directly. Liao Chen smiled bitterly and said. Not to mention the God King, even Zishan doesn't believe it. But after many years of our continuous torture and induction of Xuanhuan under the Five Elements Mountain, this is indeed true. That monkey snatched the sea-dinging needle from the demon dragon clan, renamed the six-eared macaque clan's sacred mountain Huaguo Mountain, and forced the great demon king of the demon realm, the bull demon king, to worship him. He even changed his name to Xuanhuan and made a big fuss in the god realm. All these are what the monkey did by imitating the story. Liao Chen said word by word with great solemnity. This person is Xuanhuan, he is playing the protagonist in the story. What Liao Chen said made Tianji God King stunned for a moment. That monkey from the six-eared macaque tribe brought the divine realm into turmoil back then, just to imitate a certain story? Play the main character in that story? If this is true, then this monkey is so damn cute, right? And, what kind of story is that? Can it have such great magic power? What kind of shocking cause and effect should be contained in that story? Can the listener actually achieve enlightenment? This, the more I think about it, the more outrageous it becomes. Suddenly, Tianji God King didn't know what he thought of, his purple eyes widened, and divine light enveloped Chen. He was exploring Chen's identity. Because he felt that this was too outrageous, and he doubted that this Luokan was not a dirty thing, telling him a ghost story. In the God's domain, there are also rumors about ghost stories, and they are very scary. After the death of some extremely powerful people, they are unclean and will have residual thoughts walking around the world. Occasionally, someone can hear the whispers of those residual thoughts, but after hearing them, they will die inexplicably. This is called a ghost story. However, his purple eyes scanned everything, but he didn't find anything abnormal, and he didn't move at all. Let him check. God King, don't worry, I'm not some devil, I'm not telling you ghost stories. Liao Chen smiled bitterly and continued. This incident caused a big stir even in the West. No one wanted to believe it. In the end, it was me, the Buddha, who confirmed it, and we realized that everything was true. If the King of Gods doesn't believe it, he can swear the oath of the great Dao after his death. If what he said just now is half false, and if he teaches the young monk to be eaten by thousands of ghosts, he will never have peace for eternity. He directly swore poison. At this moment, in the dark, there is an inexplicable power of cause and effect, exerted on Lucan's body. The Tianji God King's expression changed. The stronger he is, the more careful he is in his words and deeds. Every word and deed will have great cause and effect, especially the poisonous oath. Liao Chen was so clear, what he just said, should be true. But, can that thing be real? This is even more outrageous than fake. Who could have imagined that a little monkey, in order to imitate the protagonist in a story, would cause so many things that almost shook the divine realm and the western heaven? That story, how terrible must it be? He couldn't help but ask, then, what kind of story is that? I don't know. Liao Chen shook his head and said. I only know that according to the content of the story, the next step should be for a monk to save the monkey and free him from the Five Elements Mountain. This was confirmed by the monkey who was chanting all day long and was overheard by me. The heavenly God King was stunned and murmured, "A fantasy, a fantasy." At this moment, Dao Wubai, the divine strategist next to him, couldn't help but speak, saying, "Excuse me, Bodhisattva, who told this story to the monkey?" Everyone became nervous. This is even more terrifying. The story itself can make a weak little monkey from the six-eared macaque clan grow into such a terrifying demon king. The storyteller. What an eternal monster it must be. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 565. Everyone was a little dumbfounded. Even beings at the level of divine kings and divine monarchs feel that this is beyond imagination. And Dao Wuji's question made them look solemn. The little monkey who heard the story can be so defiant. The story itself is so scary, but what about the storyteller? I can't imagine how it exists. Liao Chen let out a long sigh, shook his head and said, "I don't know. You guys are dissatisfied. Not to mention the existence that tells the story, we can't even detect the story itself. The cause and effect involved, if you are not careful, you will be irreversible." Hearing this, everyone nodded silently. Indeed, I understand. Things of this level, even if you are a Buddha, you must be cautious. So, does this place have anything to do with the monkey's story? Dao Wuji continued to ask questions. Liao Chen nodded and said, "Good. Although I couldn't discern the story and the existence of the storyteller, I figured out a sentence. Life depends on 49. Life is at 49. The heavenly God King immediately understood that this place was the 49th star region. Moreover, even what the gods are doing, I, the Buddha, have already calculated. So, the young monk is here and has been waiting for a long time. From now on, there is no deviation in my Buddha's calculation. There is a shocking secret hidden in the 49th star field." After Liao Chen finished speaking, he looked at Tianji God King, waiting for Tianji God King's response. The heavenly God King fell into deep thought. This matter was obviously beyond his expectation. "Brahma, do you care about this story?" he asked. Liao Chen nodded and sighed. "I guess at the end of this story, the Brahma sect in the West may have a bad ending. This involves too much cause and effect, and even makes many people in the West uneasy. This story is like a history book that has been written. If we don't find out clearly, cut off the cause and effect, and destroy this momentum, I am afraid that my church will fall into a catastrophe according to the direction of the story. I am uneasy as a Buddha, and I am uneasy as a teacher." Hearing this, the heavenly God King completely understood. Shouldn't Zishan discuss such an important matter with the important people in the imperial court? The heavenly God King then spoke. Liao Chen couldn't help but smile mysteriously. "King of gods, do you know that there is no higher level power around us when you and I meet here?" He clasped his hands together and said, "In front of those existences, bodhisattvas and divine kings are just like pawns, just a pebble they throw into the long river of cause and effect." He was very calm. But Tianji God King set off huge waves in his heart. At this moment, he suddenly felt everything in the 49th star field. "Are you being watched?" From the time he arrived here, he had already brought the eyes of certain existences. There was a chill in his heart. However, as a God King of the generation, he finally took a deep breath and said, "I'll believe you just once. Work together to explore the secrets of the universe, but you go find your story. You can't get involved in anything in it, and you can't reveal the secret." Liao Chen smiled and said, "A pleasure to work with. We, the West Heaven Brahma sect, pay the most attention to cooperation and credibility. Please rest assured, God King, on this point." As he spoke, in the void behind him, two halos of light suddenly slowly released. Those are two powerful men at the level of gods, Arhat. These two are the 12 Arhats under me, Ge and Xia. They will assist the heavenly secret calculations and complete the heavenly secret formation. Liao Chen spoke. Tianji Shenshuan Wu Wei also nodded at this moment and said, "There are two Arhats here, and the star positions in the 10 directions have been completed. The formation of the heavenly secrets can be set up today. It won't take a few days to find the answers you want through the heavens." After he finished speaking, Liao Chen continued to speak, saying, "About this formation, the young monk has a suggestion. This matter is of great importance. After detecting the secret of heaven, in order to avoid future troubles, it is better to let the heavenly law here dissipate." He spoke calmly. After hearing this, Dao Wuji's face changed drastically and he said in shock, "You mean, you want to destroy the way of heaven?" As soon as these words came out, even Tianji God King was speechless. "I, the Buddha, are compassionate and do this just to eliminate some unnecessary causes and effects." Liao Chen clasped his hands together, a look of compassion appeared on his face, he looked kind-hearted, like an eminent monk. But these words made everyone feel chilly. Have you ever considered that if the way of heaven is destroyed, then all the creatures in the 49th star region will be destroyed, and those are trillions of creatures? Dao Wei spoke in a deep voice. "That's a small price to pay compared to all the worlds." Liao Chen said softly, "I am doing this for the future of the common people." As he spoke, he looked at Tianji God King and said, "God King, this is also for your own good. It is a greater mercy to have a glimpse of the way of heaven. It can be concealed for a lifetime, but it is difficult to conceal it for a lifetime. It is a greater mercy to let the way of heaven in the lower world be completely destroyed and give up some unnecessary ants." The heavenly God King said coldly, "Even if I agree, can I do it? You must know that it is the way of heaven. No matter how powerful the Tianji gods are, they still can't do it, and with the combined strength of you and me, two divine kings, we can't do it either." Hearing this, Liao Chen suddenly smiled and said, "The God King is too worried. Just add this stone to the Tianji formation and that's it." He took out a black stone Buddha statue. The black stone Buddha statue was carved from an unknown stone material, but the moment it was taken out, the space around it was actually cracked. This is still the result of Liao Chen's deliberate restraint. The sky-destroying stone. The face of Tianji God King changed drastically. This thing has a great reputation even in the divine realm. During the war between demons and gods, the reason why the demon world was destroyed was inseparable from this stone. In that battle, this stone destroyed countless demon worlds of heaven. It's not the real sky-destroying stone, but it's enough to destroy the heavenly Dao here. Liao Chen smiled and said, "The great array of heavenly secrets detects the records of the way of heaven. This stone destroys the mouth of the way of heaven. Cause and effect will not arise, and no grudges can be tolerated. I am the Buddha who is merciful." Tianji God King took a deep look at Chen. At this moment, he felt a chill in his heart towards the West Heaven Brahma sect. He even felt that the Divine Realm Heavenly Court had joined forces with the West Heaven Brahma sect many times over the years. It was like seeking the skin of a tiger. The ruthlessness of the West Heaven Brahma cult exceeded his imagination. In just a few words, all the heavenly Dao in the 49th star region will be destroyed, and trillions of people will disappear. However, after thinking for a long time, he still agreed. Just do this, anyway, there is a big disaster in this world. Even if it is completely destroyed, the Emperor Court will not blame it too much. Immediately, Dao Wuji presided over the formation. 10 powerful men of the God King level are located in the 10 directions of the star field in the 49th star field. Dao Wuji carved the next heavenly formations in the universe. Shortly after, in the pitch-black starry sky, the stars in the 10 directions shine brightly, and are connected to each other by a heavenly array. The magical aura passes back and forth like a shooting star, and the array is endlessly mysterious. This is the secret formation. This formation can connect to the heavenly Dao and thus observe the various records of the heavenly Dao itself. This is a forbidden technique. It should be understood that the way of heaven cannot be insulted. Even though the strong men in the divine realm have found some deceptive rituals for the way of heaven in the lower world, which can be used to help the God Master prove the way to the Divine King, but that is still a lie, and they dare not face the way of heaven directly. However, the current formation will directly peek into the records of heaven itself and discover the secrets of heaven. Once it is noticed by the way of heaven, it will inevitably be a disaster. When the time comes, even the God King may not be able to withstand the cause and effect. The Bodhisattva dust free and the Divine King of the heavens are sitting cross-legged in the deep sky, like dead trees, without any ripples or waves. Their chi has converged to the limit, as if they do not exist in this world. However, they were observing the operation of the formation. At this moment, the leader of the main formation, Dao Wuivai, has stood in the center of the 10 directions of stars. The great formation is complete, and Wuivai will connect the heavenly path of the first sub-region. He shouted loudly, and in an instant, a large array of light burst out, hiding everything and activating the source of heavenly energy. If the way of heaven is intact, this formation will not be effective, but the way of heaven in the lower world is damaged and they are all sleeping, giving me a chance. Dao Wuji pushed forward the power of the formation. In an instant, his soul left his body. The layers of heavenly Dao Chi are rising one after another, and he has successfully seen many records in the traces of heavenly Dao. He succeeded. In the Tianji formation, millions of blank jade slips rise and fall. If there is important information, it will be recorded directly on the jade slips. The heavenly secret formation moved very fast, and not long after, the heavenly Dao information in the first sub-star region of the 49th star region had been spied by Dao Wuivai. In the first heavenly path, there is a picture recorded. It is a monster with a huge human head, a giant python body, and many arms. There is a strange grey mist flowing around it. Finally, Dao Wuivai spoke and said, "The energy that alarmed the 9 cauldrons in the divine realm not long ago came from that monster." The Tianji God King's expression changed and he said, "This should be the legendary, heretic." These 3 words filled his old eyes with fear. However, fear is followed by endless greed. In the past, those who were able to fight against the heretics were the creation supremes. The heretics reappeared and were actually suppressed. Maybe the tombs of those supremes are all in this area. He was excited. This was the truly supreme opportunity, something he had been pursuing so hard. Creation supreme. The Bodhisattva shook his head and said, "Those are just a group of little people who are greedy for heaven's merit. The whole world was created by me, the Buddha. Who do they count?" Then, he continued, "The heavenly way of the first sub-star region has not been recorded in detail, which means that things did not happen in the first sub-star region. Next, destroy the cause and effect." Dao Wuivai was silent for a moment, but he still affected the Tianji formation and used the sky-destroying stone to suppress the heart of heavenly Dao. At this moment, deep in the sky, the source of heavenly energy was rolling. The spirit of heaven was awakened. It was a little girl who looked about 3 or 4 years old, similar to Tianling but at this moment, her little face was full of panic. No. The sky-destroying stone has come to suppress it. The little girl resisted with all her strength, the source energy of heaven rolling all over her body, and the rules of heaven boiling. However, that stone contains the power to destroy the sky. Ah! In the end, the little girl let out a shrill scream and was dispersed. The laws of heaven and origin energy all over her body overflowed. The way of heaven has been destroyed. Everyone just watched all this indifferently and calmly. "Hey, the way of heaven is collapsing. It won't take long for this star field to collapse and collapse. Even the space will not exist. Trillions of creatures will usher in the end. Dao Wei sighed slightly and said, can such cause and effect really be cut off? However, Luokan clasped his hands together with a look of great compassion and said, my Buddha is merciful. After they are all dead, the young monk will recite 3 days of sutras for them. Tianji God King said indifferently, let's continue. Dao Wuji also nodded, and he immediately continued to control the Tianji formation, heading towards the heavenly way in the second sub-star region. And at this moment, Daegzu star realm. Outside the small mountain village, Nanfan and others finally returned, and Mu Wanking, Yun Yinchan and others also came with their invitation. Behind them, there were hundreds of prey tied up. The weakest are all demon lords, and there are 2 demon lords among them. Ah, here, it's so magical. Tianlinger had just arrived at the entrance of the small mountain village, but his big eyes were filled with confusion and doubts, and he said, is this the place where the world was created as Grandpa said? Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 566. Tianlinger's big eyes were filled with confusion. When she approached this small mountain village, she clearly felt an unparalleled closeness, as if this small mountain village was a warm harbor. Grandpa said that when the Supreme Creator created the world, he was born from the place where the world was created, where the purest power of heaven is. The small mountain village in front of me seems like this. Nanfan and others entered the village directly. Tianlinger followed her in and stepped into the small mountain village. She felt extremely comfortable all over her body. Like a child who was about to suffocate, he suddenly breathed in the sweetest air in the world. It's so comfortable here. Tianlinger was extremely happy. She even felt that the wounds on her body were gradually healing as she entered this small mountain village. What is this place? Amazing. When Nanfeng and others returned, word quickly spread in the village. Xiao Li's apprentice is so promising, why did he hunt so many prey again? Tisk, the giant loach this time is even bigger than the last one. Last time I ate loach meat exclusively, and I almost got tired of it. This time, it's great. It has all kinds of meat. It's complete. The villagers were very happy. Notify everyone that the banquet is open. At this time, Lu Rang shouted. The village is in full swing. Not long after, we finally arrived in front of Wu Xianting. In the small courtyard, Li Fan is drinking new wheat porridge. He boiled a small pot, filled a small bowl for the kitten, and then ate some for himself. Xinmei's porridge is indeed very good. He couldn't help but nod in praise. It was almost time to harvest this year's wheat. Little greedy cat, you've finished eating too. Li Fan picked up the kitten and couldn't help but smile when he looked at the cat bowl that she had licked clean. Fortunately, this cat is not picky about food. Some people have cats that like to steal chickens to eat. What does that mean? Xiaobai is still well behaved. Xiaobai meowed and exposed his belly. Li Fan smiled and rubbed his belly. This little greedy cat knows how to enjoy it. Master, we are back. At this time, the voices of the disciples outside had already sounded. Li Fan was immediately overjoyed to know that he was back and said, come in. Nanfeng and others pushed open the door and entered. Everyone was in high spirits. It seems that he has gained a lot from hunting, however, he is still most concerned about rare animals. After all, it is related to whether he can break through the first level of qi refining. Xuanhuan, have you found that rare animal? He immediately asked. Long Xuanhuan stepped forward and said. Master Qi, everything goes well, but this is the only rare animal left. He immediately took out the scale feather and handed it to Li Fan. Li Fan took it doubtfully. What the hell is this? It looks like fish scales. It's over, something bad happened. Li Fan's heart jumped suddenly, and he couldn't help but look at Long Zixuan in shock. This guy is so damn good at eating rare animals. Li Fan instantly thought that this rare animal should be a very valuable fish. But Long Zixuan is so greedy that he can't control it. Hey guys, do you want to eat fish? Do you have any at home? Isn't it delicious to eat all the fish in a pond? Is it necessary to eat rare animals? He couldn't help asking quietly, saying, "Is this fish delicious?" Long Zixuan was immediately asked by Li Fan. Fish. Master, want to eat fish and kunpeng? It's over, master, do you want to raise kunpeng and slaughter it? At this moment, Long Zixuan's heart was so frightened that he said uneasily, Master, I don't know if it tastes good, but if you insist on eating it, wait until it grows up, cut a small piece for you to try, okay. He was extremely sad in his heart, but in order for Kunpeng to be reborn, he had to do this. But when Li Fan heard this, he immediately understood that it seemed that it was not Long Zixuan's food. When you went there, the fish was already like this. Li Fan said. Yes, master, this is the only thing left. Can it be saved? Long Zixuan asked hopefully. Li Fan felt a little relieved, so he just said, how could Long Zixuan, a fish lover, be so greedy to eat fish? It seemed that he was overthinking. However, he immediately felt a big headache. No matter how bad it is, it's just a fry. Here's a piece of scale. I'm not a god, so where can I get the magic to bring the dead back to life? But, suddenly something moved in his heart. Fish scales. Maybe there are some fish eggs attached to the fish scales. Thinking of this, Li Fan suddenly felt, maybe there was hope. The eggs are so tiny that they are invisible to the naked eye. All we can do is take a gamble. He immediately said. That's all, let's give it a try as a teacher. He immediately walked to the edge of the pond and threw the scale feather into the pond. Gong Ya, bring some wheat bran, crushed tea leaves, and corn flour. Hearing this, Gong Ya immediately took it and Li Fan personally mixed these things into fine fish feed and threw them into the water. These fish feeds can improve the organic environment in the pond and facilitate the growth of fish eggs. In addition, this pond was built by Li Fan himself to raise fish in the past. He was very confident that if there were fish eggs, they would be able to hatch small fish. I hope this pool of water will not disappoint me. Li Fan opened his mouth, turned around immediately and said. Wait. It won't take a few days to know the results. Hearing this, Long Zixuan was extremely grateful and said. Thank you, master. As he spoke, he looked at the pond, his eyes filled with deep hope. Li Fan nodded, turned his head and looked at a little girl. The little girl looked to be only 3 or 4 years old. From the moment she entered the small courtyard, her big eyes were full of curiosity and excitement, but with a hint of timidity, and she held Xuanhuan's hand. Xuanhuan, is this the child you were talking about last time? Li Fan asked. Xuanhuan nodded and said. Big brother, that's her. Her name is Tianling. After saying that, she said to Tianling. This is the person you're looking for. Hearing this, Tianling walked out timidly. Since entering this small courtyard, she felt that her wounds from heaven were almost being repaired. It was as comfortable as soaking in a hot spring. At this moment, when she saw Li Fan's warm smile, she suddenly felt an inexplicable urge to cry in her heart. She suddenly knelt down and said. Linger pays homage to the master. Meet the master. Upon hearing these 4 words, a group of disciples were immediately surprised. What's going on? Master, is the master of the spirit of heaven? Could it be that this is the true identity of master? Even Li Fan was stunned. Owner. What is this little girl doing? Get up quickly, It doesn't have to be like this. He lifted Tianlinger up, stretched out his hand to wipe Tianlinger's tears, and said, Linger, tell big brother, what's wrong? Where is your family? Hearing this, Tianlinger cried and said, Master, my grandfather was injured by a bad guy. I have never seen him again. Linger has no family. She was extremely excited. The moment she saw Li Fan, a feeling of worship naturally arose in her heart. It was like an instinct. Therefore, she did not hesitate to think, this was the master. Seeing Tianlinger crying, Li Fan couldn't help but feel pity. This little girl had such a miserable life experience. It turned out that he was almost an orphan. It seemed that she had no way out and was met by Xuanhuan. When she saw him at this moment, she knelt down and claimed to be the master. It was probably Xuanhuan who taught her so that she could stay in the small courtyard. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but feel slightly relieved. Instead of being annoyed by Xuanhuan's little tricks, he was happy for her kindness. After all, Xining was only 11 or 12 years old, and he already knew how to sympathize and love the weaker ones. This love is the most precious. You don't need to call me master, just like Xuanhuan, just call me big brother. Li Fan immediately spoke and said, Don't cry. Don't worry. No one can hurt you here. You can live here first. When you find your grandfather, let him pick you up. Hearing this, Tianlinger wiped her tears, her big eyes were dim, and she said hopefully, Brother, you will save Grandpa Xiu, right? Li Fan smiled and said, If there is a chance, I will definitely help. Are you hungry? Come on, big brother will take you to eat something delicious. As he spoke, he raised his eyes to look at Yun 11 and said with a smile, Looking at how happy you are, did you catch the prey? As soon as Yun 11 entered the door, he noticed that the silly girl's eyebrows were full of excitement. Yungzi grabbed Li Fan's hand and said excitedly, There are so many things. When the big devil leaves, I will take you to see them. Immediately, Li Fan went out with them. I saw hundreds of prey tied up at the door. Big wild boar, bison, big loach, big pheasant, all are jumping around, but they are all still alive. When Li Fan saw this, he was immediately shocked. Is this okay? He remembered that when these disciples left, they didn't even take away their bows and arrows. He deeply doubted that hunting in this world was as easy as collecting firewood. If so, can we do some hunting business in the future? An idea flashed through his mind. Soon, the pot in the village was burning. Men, women, old and young gathered together, sharpened their knives, and began to slaughter the prey. The muscles of this big loach are really good. It's even stronger than the last time. It will definitely taste better. Uncle Zhang has already cut the big loach into pieces, just waiting to be stewed in the pot. So is this big pheasant. It's really good. It can cook a big pot. Aunt Wang is the same. She is cooking a pot of chicken, and the aroma is already wafting out. It was the first time for Mu Wanqing, Yun Yinchen, and others to participate in the whole process in person, and their expressions were a little complicated at this moment. Those were Demon King level demon dragons and demon rocks. As a result, in their hands, they were just like slaughtering pigs. The key point is that many precious meats that contain sacred aura were thrown away because they were deemed too fat or unpalatable. They were all deeply silent. The people in the village are eating it up. Mu Wanqing couldn't help but speak. I simply doubt that the pig food in this village can be used as a magical medicine and delicacy in the outside world. Yun Yinchen was also in a daze. He was also a person who had eaten the banquet of God's realm in the past, but compared with other people in this village, God's domain is as poor as a country bumpkin. The key is that all the villagers in this village have a look they are used to. Li Fan, I want to eat the fried squid tentacles from last time. At this time, Yun 11 spoke expectantly. The last time they had a loach feast, Li Fan stir-fried loach whiskers as squid whiskers. It was so delicious that they all remembered it. Good. Immediately, Li Fan rolled up his sleeves and went to cook. Master, I want to eat too. Master, braised rabbit head, braised rabbit head. Master, have some pork knuckles, I like this. A group of disciples were literally queuing up to order on the spot. Even Tianlinger swallowed his saliva and said, Brother, I also want to eat meat. Because she clearly felt that Li Fan's stir-fried dishes contained Taoist rules that were of great benefit to her. The village is so lively. And at this moment, in the vast sky of stars, keep looking, there are only 4 sub-star regions left, it can't be hidden. The voice of the heavenly God King sounded. They have continuously spied on the records of heavenly law in 4 sub-star regions, and destroyed the heavenly law in all directions. Except for the heretic who appeared repeatedly, nothing else was found. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 567. Small Village. It's already night. After a period of busy cooking, the banquet has now begun. The table was full of delicious meat, and the whole village enjoyed it. Li Fan cooked a large table of dishes, including braised pork knuckles, braised rabbit heads, stir-fried squid, braised loach, sweet and sour pork ribs. They were all delicious, and a group of disciples were eating them at the moment. By the way, Xuanhuan, where has the great virtue gone? At this time, Li Fan asked doubtfully. Long Xuanhuan was startled for a moment and thought. Master, junior brother Dade, he is exercising. Exercise? Li Fan was confused for a moment. Could it be that Dade wanted to lose weight? Do people with such big hearts like Dade have body anxiety? Li Fan couldn't help but sigh. This strange world is not exempt from vulgarity. However, he didn't think much about it. As long as the person was fine, he said. Okay, let's start eating. Rabbit is so delicious. Xiling ignored her image and started to eat the braised rabbit head. The braised pork elbow is so delicious. Qing Chen and others also enjoyed the meal. Even Tianlinger was holding chopsticks and eating very attentively. She was mainly absorbing the Taoist brand and the fragments of rules in the food. Li Fan himself eats very little. He likes the atmosphere of everyone eating together more than the meal itself. Ah, the food you cook is really delicious, Big Demon King, you should eat some yourself. While Yun 11 was eating, he saw that Li Fan didn't have enough food, so he immediately gave Li Fan a lot of food. Stir-fried squid, loach meat, come on, try it. As she said that, she was serving food to Xiling, Tianlinger and the others. Li Fan looked at the bowl full of dishes, but he was a little confused. It seemed like he had made this dish himself. Why do you feel like Yun 11 is the one cooking now? At the next table, Yun Yinshan and others, Yun Qianshan and others looked a little uneasy when they saw this scene. This girl Yungzi is really too presumptuous. You are not particular about it, you are so casual in front of an existence like Senior Li. However, fortunately, Senior Li is a man of magnanimity and does not care about others. And at this moment, the entrance to the mountain village. Is this the smell of rice? Is this a banquet? A fat man climbed to the entrance of the village with difficulty. He smelled the aroma of meat wafting from the village, and immediately cried. Damn dog, you are heartless. Senior brother Xuanhuan, you are unjust. Wu Dade was extremely sad and angry, and said, you didn't wait for me, you didn't wait for me. Climbing into the village, 2 cows were tethered at the entrance of the village, both looking at him. How miserable! The big black cow chewed back and spoke. When Wu Dade saw these two cows, he felt as if he had seen a savior. He hurriedly said to the old scalper, "Master Niu, help me. I've obviously made a breakthrough, but the weight of this thing seems to have increased hundreds of times." The stone ring he wore was made by the big black dog from the sand of many worlds. When he was in the realm of gods, one ring weighed about 1 billion kilograms. Later, he desperately tried his best to rush back to the village to eat. Under such circumstances, he finally succeeded in taking that step, turning his golden body into a sixth form and becoming a god. However, what he didn't expect was that after he broke through, the weight of the stone ring suddenly increased. At that moment, Wu Dade realized that he had fallen into the trap of that dead dog. He climbed and climbed all the way. It was not easy to climb. The old scalper looked at it and couldn't help but nodded and said, "Dehe is so unkind. How can you treat your descendants like this? You don't care, you don't care." As he spoke, the old scalper waved his hoof. Suddenly, the stone ring on Wu Dade actually fell off. He immediately jumped up, jumping several feet high. "Thank you, Master Niu. Thank you, Master Niu. I will definitely prepare good grass for you." Wu Dade was so happy that he almost cried and ran towards the banquet. "Brother, you are such a good guy." The big black cow couldn't help but raise its hoof at the old scalper. The old scalper looked at it, and suddenly raised his hoof, and 4 stone rings immediately fell on the 4 hooves of the big black bull. There is also one on the cow's neck. Dehe Newton was breathing heavily, and he said aggrievedly, "Brother." The old scalper said calmly, "Brother, these rings look pretty good. You can wear them from tomorrow on." Dehe Newton was stunned and said, "But brother, you just said that you can't be so unkind to the younger generation." The old scalper raised his hoof, placed it on the head of the big black cow, and said, "Am I not kind?" Dehe Newton panicked and said, "Be kind and kind, my eldest brother is the most kind. Be kind to my brother Niu." The old scalper then put down his hoof and started chewing. Li Fan and the others were eating. "Master, I'm back." At this time, a loud voice sounded outside the banquet, and the words clearly contained great grievances. Wu Dade came over, and Li Fan also smiled and said, "Dade, are you back from exercising? Exercising is a good thing, but you can't delay eating. Come and sit down and eat." Wu Dade was full of grievances. When he heard the master's words, he was immediately confused. "I was not exercising at all. It was obvious that I had been tricked by a dead dog." However, when he saw the food on the table, all his resentment towards the big black dog was immediately forgotten. After all, he was so hungry that he couldn't care about anything at the moment, so he grabbed a braised pork knuckle and started to chew on it. Seeing him gobbling up the food, everyone laughed. Soon there were bonfires. It was a lively and heartwarming scene with everyone sitting together and making homely meals. "Come on, Xiao Li, let everyone try the new ale I brewed this time." Uncle Zhang brought the wine. The wheat has been ripe recently, and Uncle Zhang was the first to harvest it and make some wine. At this moment everyone started drinking. Unlike Master's wine, Uncle Zhang's wine is like a blazing flame. Many disciples were surprised. No matter how strong the wine was, Li Fan's wine seemed smooth and sweet when it entered the throat, but Uncle Zhang's wine was like a burning knife. Moreover, this drink entering their bodies seemed to ignite their divine power. This wine is like the fire of the avenue, cooking up their rules. So hot, so hot. Wu Dade got up, but felt a little itchy all over. "What a strong drink, Uncle Zhang is so awesome." Qing Chen already felt that his vision was hazy, and many hidden flaws in the rules were all made up at this moment. "Master, it's so spicy, so spicy. Master, my throat hurts." Ling and other female disciples were drinking, but they couldn't stand it anymore. Li Fan smiled and said, "Uncle Zhang's wine is a wine that increases strength. Uncle Zhang does farm work in the sun and wind every day. He just needs to drink strong enough to be energetic enough to work. You may not be able to bear it if you drink it like this. In a few days, Master will take you to work hard in the fields. When you are tired, you will know how refreshing this taste is." As he spoke, he drank heavily with Uncle Zhang, second uncle, and the others. This rough wine also has a unique flavor. Although it's spicy, but it's also delicious. While drinking, Yun 11 opened her small cherry mouth and exhaled loudly, with her proud chest rising and falling. She also stretched out the wine bowl, clinked glasses with Li Fan, Uncle Zhang, and the second uncle, and said, "Cheers." The second uncle and others all laughed. The wine was strong and the effect came very quickly. Before long, Nanfan Xiling and others were all drunk. Mu Wanking's face turned red. Under the influence of alcohol, her body was undergoing a baptism and her whole body felt hot. Yun Yinshan and Yun Qianshan couldn't hold on any longer and were sweating profusely. Even Ming Tianbei and others were used to eating and drinking in the village, but now they couldn't bear the wine and got drunk. However, the benefits of this wine to them are undoubtedly huge, burning the Tao body and smelting impurities. Even Tianlinger was sipping from a small cup at the moment. As she drank, she felt dizzy. "I'm so dizzy," however, in Linger's body, the rules have been melted and sublimated. Wow, Linger seems to be growing. As she spoke, she tipped the wine glass aside and passed out drunk. However, her body was slowly undergoing some strange changes. The rules, origin energy, etc. that make up her body are evolving towards a higher level. The incompleteness and scars of the avenue in her body were now being repaired. Tiandao is also upgrading. "Xiaozhang, you have to learn from Xiao Li about your brewing skills. I remember Xiao Li's ale is called mellow, but yours is too strong." The second uncle was drinking and commenting, "I'm just waiting for Xiao Li to make ale quickly." Uncle Zhang did not refute, but said expectantly, "The ale brewed by Xiao Li is indeed delicious." Li Fan also smiled and said, "Okay, we will harvest the wheat and make wine in a few days." Everyone continued drinking for a long time and then dispersed. These disciples are really troublesome. Li Fan looked at the drunk disciples and could only sigh and hugged the female disciples back one by one. "Master, my throat is sore." When Ling lay down, she was still muttering in a low voice. Li Fan immediately went to get some cold water, lifted her up and fed her some water. The wine was indeed spicy. He was afraid of affecting his disciples' sleep, so he immediately gave Nanfan, Gongya, Subakian, and others some water. Then he got up and dragged Qing Chen, Wu Dade, and others. The only person who was less worried was Yun 11. Although she was drunk, she would not fall asleep and could even help Li Fan drag others. After finally dragging the person away, Yun 11's beautiful face was covered with sweat. "Big Demon King, do you still want to watch dancing? I want to dance." Yun 11 seemed to be about to dance, but she fell down, the alcohol surged in her, and she passed out. Li Fan hurriedly supported her, carried her into the room, covered her with a quilt, stood up and prepared to leave. "Big Demon King, I seem to be dreaming. I dreamed that Qing Chen and the others were all dead, I dragged them out of the grave." Yun 11, who was sleeping, suddenly murmured like a dream. When Li Fan heard this, he couldn't help but stop, gently caressed Yun 11's face with his hand, and said, "Silly girl, that was just a dream. As long as I'm here, no one will die." After saying that, he turned and left. At this moment, there is a bright moon in the sky. No one knows that in the cold void of the universe, a large formation is running crazily. A black stone lay across the sky, and deep in the sky, a little boy of 3 or 4 years old died in pain. That is the spirit of heaven in the 6th substar region. There are 8 substar regions in the 49th star region, and each substar region has a spirit of heaven. Driven by Tianji God King, Liao Chen, and others, 6 of them have been destroyed. The heavenly Dao of the 6th substar region has also been destroyed. Only the 7th and 8th substar regions are left. There was already a layer of sweat on Dao Wuji's face. God King, I vaguely remember that Xin Mi's younger brother Xin Luo seemed to have chosen to attain enlightenment in the 8th star region. The Divine Lord Wan Qiang suddenly spoke, not knowing what he thought of. King Tianji said indifferently. Unimportant. Nothing can be left out, only 2 directions of heaven are left. Continue. Good night. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 568. Early morning, bright sunshine. Li Fan woke up drowsily, with Xiaobai sleeping on his waist. Reaching out and touching Xiaobai, Li Fan stood up, put on his clothes, and pushed out the door. After washing up, Gong Ya served breakfast. Today's breakfast is quite rich, including meat and eggs. Because there is still a lot of meat left, enough to last for a while. While eating breakfast, Li Fan thought and said, "The weather has been hot recently, Gong Ya, remember to put those ghost teeth on the meat cabinet so that the temperature can be lower. Mainly because I'm afraid of dying. In this different world, there is no refrigerator, which is really inconvenient. It would be great if there were more things made of ghost teeth. They can be used to make boxes and cabinets to store food." Li Fan couldn't help but speak. By then, if every household is given one, wouldn't everyone in the village be able to eat fresh meat? It is not necessary to salt and smoke the meat every time. Although it has a unique flavor, it is too simple after all. Hearing this, Yun 11 next to him immediately answered the conversation and said excitedly, "Don't worry, Big Devil, we will go out to look for the ghosts in a few days." Zi Ling also said, "Yes, the ghost's teeth should be growing in soon." Li Fan suddenly felt dizzy when he saw the 2 female disciples, Xiling and Yungzi, who led the other. He couldn't help but feel a pang of sympathy for the ghosts. Huh? Why doesn't the cat eat porridge today? At this time, Gong Ya suddenly spoke doubtfully. Xiaobai would eat some of the polenta she cooked today. When Li Fan saw this, he immediately understood and said with a smile, "This greedy cat is picky. It must be that after eating new wheat porridge yesterday, the corn porridge couldn't fit into its mouth." Li Fan immediately peeled an egg for the kitten and said, "If you don't like porridge, just eat the eggs first. I'll cook them for you after the wheat is harvested." The kitten meowed, licked Li Fan's hand, and then happily ate the eggs. Speaking of this, Li Fan suddenly remembered, today we can organize the disciples and go harvest the wheat. Then, Li Fan looked at Tianlinger again and asked, "Aren't you used to eating?" He noticed that Tianlinger only ate a little bit of porridge. Tianlinger sat next to Xianning, very well behaved, and said, "Brother, no, the porridge made by Sister Gongya is so delicious. It's just, Linger doesn't want to eat it. Brother, can I leave a little for Grandpa and the others?" Her big eyes were filled with hope. The origin energy, rules, etc. contained in these foods are very important to the spirit of heaven. She had only been in the small mountain village for 1 day, and all the injuries in her body had already healed. There is no need to sleep again. Therefore, she wanted to save this food and leave it to her grandfather. When Li Fan heard this, he couldn't help feeling pity in his heart and said, "Linger, don't worry, there is a lot of food. You are still growing, so you can't go hungry. Only when you grow up can you protect them and help them, you know." After Tianlinger heard this, he nodded and said, "Thank you, big brother." She picked up the small bowl and started to drink the porridge. And at this moment, The heavenly Dao of the 7th star region has also been destroyed, and it hasn't been found yet. In the void of the universe, the face of Tianji God King was filled with solemnity. They worked non-stop, constantly operating the Tianji formation, and at this moment they had continuously detected the 7 square sub-star regions. Destroyed the heavenly Dao of the Qifangzi star region. But, nothing was found. Now, in the entire 49th star field, only the 8th sub-star field is left. This sub-star field is the last of the 49th star field, and it is also the most desolate and remote one. Could it be that the bones of the Creator Supremes are actually buried in this desolate star field? The heavenly God King murmured. Amitabha, my Buddha is compassionate. Liao Chen smiled and said. The last side of heaven, it seems that everything we are looking for is here. All the hard work is worth it. He looked at Dao Wuji and said. Fellow Taoist, please take action. For the future of the common people and for the peace of eternity, all your efforts will be accomplished in one battle. Dao Wuji glanced at the 7 sub-star regions behind him. The way of heaven has been destroyed, and those sub-star regions have gradually begun to die. Soon, trillions of living beings will be completely destroyed. This time, I am of the same lineage as Tianji Xuanhuan, and I am afraid that the cause and effect will become bigger. He had been worried. After all, what those in their profession fear most is karma. These things are inexplicable and mysterious. Those who achieve great things don't stick to trivial matters. Liao Chen opened his mouth and said, don't worry, they who died will be reborn in my Buddha's kingdom. Death is a mercy to them. Dao Wei listened, with a hint of unbearable disgust in his eyes, and said. Forget it, Chen Chen Bodhisattva, you don't have to tell me this. I will continue to calculate, and then follow the way of destroying heaven. After saying that, he immediately began to continue operating the Tianji formation. The star positions of the 10 directions appear deep in the star dome of the 8th sub-star field. Compared with the other 7 sub-star regions, this star region seems very desolate, and not even many star wheels are formed. The stars in the 10 directions burst into brilliant light. The formation is stirring up the secrets of heaven. Suddenly, Dao Wei was startled and said. Where's the way of heaven? He didn't find the spirit of heaven just now? You must know that the spirits of heaven generally sleep in the ocean of heaven's heart. But now according to the detection results of the Tianji array, Tianjin ocean is empty. How can this be? Could it be said that the way of heaven was not born in this Fangzi star region? That is even more nonsense. It's impossible, I should be looking at you for a while. Dao Wei murmured, and he immediately activated the Tianji formation more than a dozen times. But, still found nothing. What happened? The heavenly God King also spoke with doubts, and they all sensed something was wrong. Tiandao is gone. Dao Wuji looked ugly. Hearing this, Tianji Divine King and Liao Chen were both stunned. Heaven is missing? You mean, the spirit of heaven in this 8th sub-star region is not sleeping in the ocean of Tianjin? The heavenly God King asked. Dao Wuji nodded. At this moment, his face was full of doubts and he said. Yes, it's true that he's not here. Several people looked at each other. Ever since the battle between demons and gods and the damage to the ancestral heaven of the divine realm, all the heavens in the lower world have been prosperous and damaged. They have all suffered from injuries. Unless there is a ritual to awaken them, they are all sleeping in the ocean of the heart of heaven. Why did it disappear? Tianji God King said, could it still be able to run away on its own initiative? However, Liao Chen thought about it and said. Sure enough, there are variables. We should have expected it a long time ago. The level of cause and effect involved in that kind of secret is too high. When we tried to pry into it, variables had already appeared. The heavenly God King said. Now that Tiandao is gone, what should we do? Liao Chen looked at Dao Wuji, suddenly smiled and said, "Brother Dao, if I guess correctly, the heavenly Dao insect transformed by the master should be on your body." Hearing this, Dao Wui's expression changed drastically. He murmured, "The Western Brahma sect has indeed obtained Taoist secrets from our Tianji divine calculation lineage, and they even know the secret." The heavenly God King asked, "Tiandao worm? What is that?" Liao Chen smiled and said, "He is of the same lineage as Tianji and Xuanhuan. He has been with Tianji all his life and wandered under the path of heaven. After the fortune teller of heavenly secrets dies, he will turn into a kind of spiritual insect, the heavenly Dao insect. This kind of insect is extremely sensitive to the aura of heaven. It can eat away at the source of heaven's energy. No matter where the spirit of heaven is hidden, it can be found. Moreover, this kind of divine insect is almost spiritual and can transcend spatial distances." Hearing this, the heavenly God King was extremely surprised. This, Tianji Shensuan lineage is simply too strange. The heavenly Dao insect transformed by my master, is indeed on my body. Dao Wui sighed slightly and took out a crystal box. I saw a small black beetle sleeping in the box. That, is Master Dao Wui, the heavenly Dao worm that transformed into the heavenly Dao worm after the death of the previous heavenly secret divine operator. Looking at the black beetle, Dao Wuji sighed. Liao Chen Bodhisattva knows our heavenly secrets and calculations very well, but do you know how this insect was formed? Liao Chen said, "I would like to hear the details." Dao Wui said word for word, "Actually, this insect is not a divine insect, but a demonic insect." He looked extremely solemn and said, "The divine fortune teller of heaven's secrets, he has been dealing with the ways of heaven and heaven's secrets all his life, and his obsession persisted after death, so he turned into this insect. This bug is not so much a bug as it is an evil thought, agreed for the way of heaven. That's why this kind of demonic insect can seek out the chi of heaven and even devour some of the weaker heavenly spirits." The Tianji God King's expression changed. At this moment, when he looked at the black beetle, he couldn't help but feel a little more fearful. Liao Chen put his hands together and said, "Amitabha, greed, anger, and ignorance are the sufferings of all sentient beings." Dao Wui laughed at himself and said, "We are of the same lineage as the heavenly secret God. The ancestors of all generations turned into queens of the heavenly Dao insects and asked their descendants to kill the demonic insects. But in my hands, because I was not good at learning, I still needed the magic insect left behind by my ancestor to help me practice, so I kept this magic insect." As Bodhisattva clearing the dust said, "When this insect comes out, you can find the spirit of the way of heaven. Even in the past, my master was a divine fortune teller walking under the heavenly realm of the gods. In addition, the heavenly realm in this lower realm has been greatly damaged. The demonic insect transformed by my master may be able to devour the heavenly realm in this lower realm." He spoke solemnly and said, "But in this way, our lineage is completely on the opposite side of heavenly Dao. A lineage of divine fortune tellers deduces the secrets of heaven, but they also need to sincerely serve the way of heaven. Now that I have offended the way of heaven in the lower world, it is already disrespectful. If I continue to allow demonic insects to eat the sky, then I will be a sinner for all eternity." Hearing this, Liao Chen smiled slightly and said, "Donor, you already are. After the 7 directions of heaven were destroyed, do you think you can still survive alone?" Dao Wuji's expression changed and he said, "That was destroyed by your Brahma sect, what does it have to do with me?" Liao Chen leisurely said, "How can I allow you to look at me from across the bank? Fellow Daoist, kill people and silence them. Heavenly Dao has slipped through the net. Can you sleep well?" Dao Wui's lips trembled slightly. At this moment, layers of chills rose in his heart, and he said, "You Brahmins, are simply devils." Liao Chen sighed, a look of great compassion appeared on his face, and said, Fellow Taoist, you have misunderstood. I am the Buddha who is compassionate. If you want to save the common people, you always need some small price. Dao Wuji shook his head and said. After this is done, I just want to never have anything to do with your Western Brahma religion again. Liao Chen smiled and said, please. Dao Wui was silent, and he immediately continued to operate the Tianji Grand Formation, attracting a wisp of qi from the Tianjin Ocean. Putting this ray of energy into the box, I saw that the dead black beetle slowly came to life. That black beetle gives people an inexplicable feeling of extreme uneasiness, as if it is going to devour everything, cruel and cruel. Dao Wuji bowed deeply to the black bug in the box and said. I disturbed Master Kingziu. Please help me, Master, to find the spirit of heaven here. In the box, the tentacles of the Dao insect moved lightly, and then the black color suddenly disappeared. Both of you, I will use a formation to connect us with my master, the heavenly Dao insects, and our perceptions will be integrated with our masters. We can use master to find the spirit of heaven. Hearing this, both Tianji Divine King and Liao Chen nodded. Dao Wui rotates the formation. Suddenly, all three of them closed their eyes. At this moment, all their perceptions have been connected to the heavenly Dao insect through the formation. They felt that the Tiandao worm was passing through the wormhole in space and crossing in the void. Soon, the Tiandao insect seemed to appear outside a star wheel. The central realm of the star wheel was full of light, and it looked like an eternal realm. The Tiandao insect was extremely fast and quickly landed in the Degzu star realm. And at this moment, small village. It's another harvest day, a good year when the wind blows the wheat waves. Li Fan led a group of disciples and stood on the ridge. The wind with some heat blew by, and the golden waves of wheat rose and fell, and the fragrance of wheat spread faintly. The fields are full of working scenes, and the villagers are busy harvesting wheat. Apprentices, start cutting the wheat. Li Fan spoke, holding a sickle in his hand. He went directly to the ground and started harvesting. A group of disciples immediately followed Li Fan to the fields and started doing farm work. The adults were doing farm work, while the children were playing on the edge of the field. Soon, Tianlinger, Area, Wang Xiao and other children from the village were playing together. They chased and fought, and soon they were far away from the ridge and outside the village. Linger, follow us quickly, let's go out for adventure. Area, who was 7 or 8 years old, pulled Tianlinger and ran behind the group of children. Wang Xiao, who is 21 years old, is a king of children. He has a rusty sickle in his waistband and sneaks out of the village with 7 or 8 children. Little brother, I heard it's very dangerous outside. Area was a little worried. Don't be afraid, the outside world is not that dangerous. Haven't you seen that every time Brother Date and the others go out, they come back with a lot of prey? If we can catch some, the adults will definitely be happy. Wang Xiao and a group of boys were eager to try. Children of this age have the strongest desire to explore. Yes, there are a lot of prey out there. Eat meat, eat meat. Tianlinger's big eyes were also shining. But, at this moment, a black beetle suddenly flew from the front. Yeah, what kind of insect is that? Tianlinger suddenly had a hint of fear in his big eyes. This kind of bug made her feel threatened. Sister Linger, don't be afraid. Area protected Tianlinger behind him and said, it's just a little bug. At this moment, the black beetle had landed in front of a group of children, its teeth and claws showing, and it looked very fierce. Second brother, what kind of insect is this? A group of children asked curiously. Wang Xiao was also thinking and suddenly said. I know, this is a dung beetle. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 569. Hearing this, a group of children immediately looked at the black beetle curiously. Dung beetle. Yes, I heard from the adults that dung beetles are black beetles. I heard that dung beetles can push dung balls. They started talking. This bug is so vicious, it is a bad bug and it wants to bite me. At this time, Tianlinger continued to speak. Her perception is extremely powerful. And that Dao worm, with its tentacles raised at this moment, its greedy aura lingering around the insect's body, crawled towards Tianlinger step by step. Hearing this, Wang Xiao patted his chest and said, "Isn't it just a dung beetle? Don't be afraid. I'll slap it flat." As he spoke, he took off the other rusty sickle from his waist and was about to smash it at the dung beetle. But that Dao worm suddenly froze at this moment and actually started to tremble. Deep in the starry sky, Tianji God King, Liao Chen, and Dao Wuji all smiled. Because, with the help of the heavenly Dao insects, they felt the spirit of heavenly Dao. Found it? The heavenly God King spoke. Dao Wui said in a deep voice. Next, the Tiandao worms will devour Tiandao. During this period, the relevant memories of Tiandao will also be known to us. Liao Chen smiled slightly. It is indeed a divine insect transformed by the divine fortune teller. The young monk is already looking forward to it. However, before he finished speaking, the expressions of the three of them suddenly changed. At this moment, the three of them seemed to feel something extremely terrifying coming over them. It was as if there was an extremely terrifying eternal sword that was about to be chopped down. This kind of qi is above everything else, and wherever it goes, there is no way to stop it. No. What happened? The Tianji God King's expression changed drastically and he spoke in shock. Even though he is the God King, he clearly feels that he is being targeted by some kind of supreme being and is about to kill him. Moreover, he had no power to fight back, like a lamb at the mercy of others. Buddha save me. Liao Chen's face changed in shock, and he shouted directly. The indifference and compassion on his face disappeared, and now only nervousness and fear remained. He couldn't imagine what he had gotten into. The great terror, this is coming from the Tiandao insect. Has it affected us? What happened to my master? Dao Wuji's expression changed drastically and he spat out a mouthful of blood. He told the truth. This terrifying and monstrous energy comes from the Tiandao insect. Because they were connected to the Tiandao insect through the formation and blended with the Tiandao insect's perception, the perception of the Tiandao insect was transmitted to them at this moment. The three of them were extremely nervous, their nerves were tense, as if they were waiting to die. And at this moment, in front of the small mountain village, "I'll shoot him to death." Wang Xiao was holding a rusty sickle and was about to hit the dung beetle. At this moment, the dung beetle was clearly trembling, and there was even some yellow liquid under his feet, as if scared to the point of peeing. "Don't want." At this time, Arya suddenly spoke. Wang Xiao stopped immediately and said doubtfully, "Arya, what's wrong?" Arya said angrily, "Second brother, you are so cruel. How could you beat it to death? Haven't you heard? Dung beetles are beneficial insects. It can eat dung balls." Wang Xiao heard this, scratched his head and said, "So what should I do now?" Arya looked at the little black beetle on the ground that didn't dare to move, and said sympathetically, "It must be hungry and looking for food. Shall we get him something to eat? We can also watch the dung beetle push the dung ball." As she said this, she was a little excited. The Tiandao insects on the ground were still in panic and were inexplicably confused at this moment. Get something to eat? Watch the poop ball push? It feels like something bad is about to happen. Yes, Sister Arya is still caring. We want to see the dung beetle push the dung ball. I haven't seen how a dung beetle decomposes dung, let's see. Others also spoke immediately. After all, they are still children, very playful and very curious about insects like dung beetles. Wang Xiao also nodded and said. Okay, then I'll guard the dung beetle, Daniel, and Xiaozu here, and you guys can go find some dung. Among the children, Daniel and Xiaozu immediately agreed and ran all the way to look for dung. Don't be afraid, wait a while and you will have something to eat. The kind-hearted Arya looked at the dung beetle on the ground, as if talking to it and comforting it. But at this moment, the dung beetle was clearly trembling. It's like he's scared. It turned around silently, as if trying to escape. Dung beetle, don't run away. But Wang Xiao hurriedly blocked the retreat of the Tiandao insect with his sickle. When the Tiandao insect saw the sickle, it became even more frightened. It was so frightened that it backed away and never dared to run away again. Xiao, Arya, we are back. At this time, the voice of Daniel and Xiaozu came. I saw them carrying a wooden barrel with difficulty and walking over. That's the dung bucket at the end of the village. A smell of feces spread immediately. It stinks. Daniel, why did you take so much? How disgusting. The children can't stand it. Daniel said naively. We're afraid the dung beetles won't have enough to eat. Although Arya also wrinkled her nose, she said. No matter, let's feed the dung beetle quickly, it must be very hungry. A group of children were so playful that they immediately forgot about the stench of manure. Wang Xiao picked up the wooden scoop in the dung bucket, scooped out a small scoop of dung, placed it in front of Tiandao worm, and said. Eat quickly. A group of children looked expectantly. Tiandao insect. It almost exploded, it was a Tiandao worm. Feeding on the source energy of heavenly Dao, it can devour weak heavenly Dao. But now, why don't you eat? Wang Xiao squatted down holding the sickle, very curious. Feeling the approach of the sickle, the Tiandao insect suddenly panicked, completely panicked. That scythe can really kill it completely with ease. The Tiandao insect can no longer care about so much at this moment. It hurriedly start fulfilling the mission of a dung beetle. Yeah. It's really a dung beetle. Awesome. It turns out Daddy didn't lie to me. Shit beetles really eat shit. Oh, it's disgusting. A group of children were very excited. Soon, all the dung in that small scoop was eaten by the dung beetles. That dung beetle, his body seems to be a little bigger, I don't know if it is being stretched or something. The dung beetle has grown up. Wow, we are so awesome. Keep feeding it, and we'll raise the dung beetle. A group of children were very happy. Daniu was also happy, and then scooped out a large ladle, handed it to Tiandao worm, and said innocently. You're welcome, dung beetle, keep going. The Tiandao insects were simply trembling. What the hell was this done by humans? But at this moment, it didn't dare to move at all. Because, that sickle. Too scary, too scary. At this moment, Tiandao Chang's scalp was numb, but he had no choice but to risk it. This is a group of demons, but after they have had enough fun, they will probably let themselves go. With this hope, the Tiandao insect continued. Eat like crazy. The Tiandao insect is a strange insect in the world. After eating it, although it was completely indigestible, it was not swollen to death, but only expanded in size. Wow, you have really grown up again. We are so awesome. Daniu, let me feed it. You're feeding it too dry. Give it some water so it can eat well. A group of children are vying to feed the dung beetles, and are even discussing how to feed the dung beetles better. It's like discussing a very important matter. At this moment, the Tiandao insect's limbs were trembling. Damn, what kind of devils are these? Are you still playing? And at this moment, in the starry sky, vomit. No. Ugh. Tianji Divine King, Dao Wei, etc. are all vomiting. Because before the feeling of being frightened by the shocking heavenly sword passed, they felt nauseated. It was like something was constantly going into my throat, it was so disgusting. Even the God King and Bodhisattva couldn't bear it anymore and started vomiting wildly. Damn it, what do the Tiandao worms eat? Does the spirit of Tiandao taste like this? I won't believe it even to death, yuck. The heavenly God King was almost exhausted, with a look of doubt on his face. Are the heavenly Dao insects eating the heavenly Dao spirit? Amitabha, Buddha, be patient, for the sake of Brahma, for the sake of important things, yuck. I vomited the dust so much that my lungs almost came out. At this moment, my mentality was about to collapse, and he said, I'm so confused. What did your master eat? Is it over yet? He really couldn't help it. At first, he convinced himself to endure the calm for a while, but there was no end to it. It seems like there is no end to the food. I can't bear it anymore. Daowaji was even more tearful at this moment and his voice was hoarse. He almost cried and said, Master, when will you finish eating? In the far distance, Huangqiang Shenzhen and other 10 god-level powerhouses were looking at the situation of the 3 bosses. There are some sluggish. I was scared to death playing the escape room and just came back alive. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 570. God King and the others, what's going on? Did you have a bad stomach? Food poisoning. It's outrageous, it's simply outrageous. That's a God King and a Bodhisattva, and he's so out of character. A group of divine kings all had complicated expressions and had no idea what was going on. And TNG God King and others are becoming more and more miserable at this moment. Because, that feeling. It goes on and on. The Tiandao worm seemed to have never stopped, it kept eating, 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 eating. Help, I really can't vomit anymore, vomit, vomit. The heavenly God King was about to cry. He lay in the void and almost vomited bile. What did your master eat? Why does he seem to be eating shit? I can't stand it anymore, I can't stand it anymore, vomit. Liao Chen's face turned pale, his snow-white cassock was covered with vomit, and he felt a little exhausted at this moment. Daowaji's whole body was trembling, his limbs were twitching, and he was already out of strength. There must be a problem, there must be a problem. The 3 of them were almost in a state of despair, because while they were vomiting wildly, they still felt full at the same time. As if full of food. This is so magical. Moreover, they all understand that all this is because their perception is integrated with the Tiandao insect. What the Tiandao insect feels is how they feel. And at this moment, in front of the small mountain village, after being carefully fed by a group of children, the dung beetle actually grew to the size of a fist. I don't know if it was due to being held up or what happened. At this moment, the bucket of manure carried by Daniu and Xiaozu has reached the bottom. Wow, dung beetles are so edible. Awesome. It's so big. A group of children surrounded the dung beetle, talking excitedly, as if they had accomplished something big. As for the Tiandao insect, it could hardly hold on at this moment. It's almost dizzy now. Let's go get 2 more buckets. I guess the dung beetles haven't eaten enough yet. When Daniel saw this, he spoke naively. Hearing this, the Tiandao insects were immediately shocked. Damn. Not finished? What kind of devil is this? He is a heavenly worm and has already eaten up a bucket of dung, but these devils still won't let him go? It simply doubted how much these devils had prepared for themselves. What a bully. It simply kicked off its forelegs and turned belly up. This is, lying flat. It is already determined not to be able to eat anymore. Seeing this, a group of children became anxious. What happened to the dung beetle? Is he full? Probably. They were all confused. Daniu, what are you doing? At this time, Aunt Wang's voice suddenly came from the entrance of the village. Hearing this, a group of children turned their heads. Aunt Wang, we are feeding the dung beetles. Yes, we fed the dung beetles so big. We are awesome. A group of children spoke one after another. When Aunt Wang heard this, she walked over and glanced at Tian Dao Chong. This is not a dung beetle. Dung beetles don't look like this. It's so ugly. I'm afraid it's some kind of pest. You should stay away. Hearing this, the Tiandao insects on the ground suddenly became excited. A benefactor, simply a benefactor. Yes, I am a pest, I am a pest, stay away from me. It turned over in excitement. When a group of children heard this, they were immediately disappointed. Ah, it's not a dung beetle. Pest, pest. It's too much. We actually let us feed it for so long. And Wang Erxiao was even more angry and said, this insect is so bad, it actually came to our village to cheat us with food and drink. Upon hearing this, the Tiandao insects immediately trembled. Is this justified? Is there any royal method? How could there be such a devil, forcing himself to swallow so much, and in the end he actually said that he was cheating on food and drink. However, the next moment it was so frightened that it peed. This bug looks disgusting. Get out of the way and I'll slap it to death. Aunt Wang held up the hoe and patted it directly. No. I am a dung beetle, I am a dung beetle, I am willing to be a dung beetle. I can still eat it? Don't kill me. The heavenly Dao insect was extremely frightened. At this moment, it clearly felt that the power of the hoe was actually far above the terrifying sickle. It was so frightened by this power that it couldn't even move. Snapped. The sound of bugs being blown up. Aunt Wang put away the hoe casually and said, let's go home with Aunt Wang. Aunt Wang will make new wheat sesame seed cakes for you to eat. Hearing this, everyone suddenly became happy. Let's go, let's eat Zinmei Xiaobing. A group of children were forgetful. In an instant, they forgot all about the dung beetle and immediately followed Aunt Wang back to the village. And at this moment, no. In the starry sky of the universe, the three gods, King Tianji and Bodhisattva Ling Chen, all shouted in horror. While they were vomiting wildly, they felt a great terror of death coming. This made them all so scared that their faces turned pale, and they even closed their eyes, feeling like they were going to die. But, immediately afterwards, they fell into a long silence. In the distance, Wangshan Shenjun, Gay Arhut, etc. were all waiting anxiously and nervously, not knowing what was going on. A long time later. We are not dead. The heavenly God King spoke tremblingly. Liao Chen said in a daze. My Buddha is merciful, the connection between us and the Dao insect of that day has finally been severed. At this moment, he almost wanted to cry. Damn, that feeling of stuffing things in his throat, it was so disgusting. In fact, all three were unscathed. From beginning to end, they were only mentally and emotionally tortured in an inhuman way. No. Why was the connection suddenly disconnected? At this time, Dao Wei, who was sweating profusely because of nervousness, suddenly said nervously. My master. He died. This is the only possibility, the Tiandao insects have been killed. His face suddenly turned extremely ugly. It should be noted that the Dao insect was still of great use to him that day and could help him practice. Moreover, if the Tiandao insect dies, does it mean that the behavior of himself and others has been exposed? At that time, all your actions will no longer be hidden. At this moment, there was cold sweat on his face. God King, what do you think? At this time, Liao Chen, who had regained his composure, looked at Tianji God King. The Tianji God King looked gloomy and said, I suspect that behind this eighth heavenly spirit, there is an expert to help. The spirit of heaven disappeared inexplicably, and the insects of heaven were also suppressed. This person is not simple. In my opinion, it should be suspended for now. However, Liao Chen shook his head and said, there can be no reprieve. This matter must be done in one go, otherwise, the big plan will be leaked immediately. A sneer appeared in his eyes and he said, as for the people behind the heavenly spirit, I think you, God King, have overestimated it. The heavenly God King said coldly. Overestimated? Is that feeling of near death just now fake? The reason why he wanted to quit was because the feeling of being locked and destroyed just now made him afraid. As a God King level figure, he has never felt this way in hundreds of thousands of years. Appearing now gave him a bad feeling. King of gods, please don't forget that everything we felt just now was actually the feeling of the Tiandao insect. In other words, as long as that Dao worm is afraid, we will also be afraid. And it is just a worm after all. How can you be sure that the person who killed it was a master and not an ordinary person? After saying that, Liao Chen looked at Dao Wuji and said, if I'm not wrong, although the Tiandao insects are strange, there are many ways to kill them, and it doesn't require a particularly powerful being to take action, right? Dao Wuji nodded and said, it's true, the heavenly Dao insect is a peerless insect that can eat the heavenly Dao, but, it also has many fatal weaknesses. Liao Chen nodded and said, so, the young monk guesses that the person who destroyed the heavenly Dao insect is not a real strong person at all. His face was full of determination and he said, moreover, this is just a lower star field, and it doesn't even have a god level one. Can an exist that threatens us? Hearing this, Tianji God King also began to think in his eyes. What Liao Chen said, makes sense. If Bodhisattva hadn't solved my doubts, I would have been deceived. The heavenly God King immediately spoke and said, so from a Bodhisattva's perspective, what should you and me do now? Liao Chen looked at Dao Wei and said, if I guessed correctly, you should be able to trace the traces of the Tiandao insect. Dao Wuji nodded and said, I am extremely familiar with the chi mechanism of the Tiandao insect and can track it. Liao Chen said, then please ask fellow Taoists to track it down. Dao Wei looked troubled and said, the place where my master died is unknown. And Neng can go there easily. Liao Chen sighed slightly. Fellow Taoist, don't you understand yet? You have no choice. This eighth heavenly Dao must die, otherwise there will be endless troubles. Your three families and mine will be infamy for thousands of years and become the public enemy of the world. Besides, in this Fangza Star territory, there is not even a Hengja born, and there are no god-level figures, so why are you afraid of it? As he spoke, he also took out a crystal brocade box. In the brocade box, there was actually a stone lying there. The stone looked as if it had been soaked in rotten, smelly water for too long, making it look black and dark. The crystal brocade box exudes a faint golden Buddha light, but even so, the stone is still frightening, as if it represents some kind of terror. What's this? The heavenly God King spoke in surprise. Even he, a majestic God King, couldn't see through it. This thing is the immortal stone. Liao Chen smiled slightly, looked at Dao Wuji, and said, Brother Taoist, should you have heard of the legend of this stone? No matter who has such a stone beside him when he dies, his soul will be immortal. The entire Western Heaven Brahma sect only has this piece of it, and now I'm borrowing it from fellow Taoists. He handed the crystal box to Dao Wuji. Dao Wui's expression was also very solemn. He could see that this stone was indeed extraordinary. It should, really be the legendary immortal stone. This is a rare and life-saving treasure. Okay, if that's the case, I'll go into the tiger's den and take a look. He agreed. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 571. Daowaji has already set off. He used the endless means of the Tianji divine calculation lineage and nervously pursued the clues left by the Tiandao insect. The heavenly god king and Ling Chen Bodhisattva did not follow, but sent two divine kings to protect them. Divine Lord Xuanyi and Divine Lord Jinchi. The world flies by. The star field is too vast. Even if it is only the 8th sub-star field, the space is endless and the search is very difficult. However, Daowaji had been practicing with the heavenly Dao insect for a long time, and he was very familiar with that kind of energy. He finally found some traces and pursued it all the way. Huh? In that star wheel in front of you, it seems like an eternal world is about to be born. Suddenly, when he arrived in the void somewhere, Divine Lord Xuanyi's expression changed and he pointed forward. Daowaji raised his eyes and saw a star wheel in the desolate and distant void ahead. The star realm at the center of the star wheel shone like a bright moon in the cold darkness. That is, the light of the eternal world. That star realm is evolving towards the eternal realm. How can the eternal realm be born in such a remote and desolate star realm? Jinchi Shenjun said, it's really surprising. But Daowaji suddenly changed his expression and said, no. The traces of the Tiandao insect seem to be heading towards the star realm. Go and see. They stood up immediately and soon arrived at the Degzu star wheel. The three of them were quite cautious and suppressed their energy before entering the Great Ruins realm. As soon as they entered the Great Ruins realm, a strong sacred aura came over them. The origin chi of this world is so strong. Divine Lord Xuanyi couldn't help being surprised and said, although this world has not yet been fully formed, the concentration of sacred breath inside is no less than that of some ordinary eternal worlds. This world has great potential. Jinchi Shenjun also spoke solemnly and said, maybe it can become a Shenjun dojo in the future, maybe. Divine Lord Xuanyi nodded and said, however, in the endless star territory, there are no more than 3,000 constant realms. Even the lowest level of the white source constant realm will not appear in such a remote star field. This is strange. There are also hierarchical divisions in the eternal world. Baiwen Hengja is the lowest level of Hengja and only possesses white divine source energy. Generally speaking, in this environment, cultivators can reach the God Lord level at most. On top of the white source eternal realm, there are 7 kinds of eternal realms: red, orange, yellow, green, cyan, indigo, and purple. Among the billions of lower realms, there are only 4 permanent realms: white, red, orange, and yellow. If it evolves to the green source eternal realm level, it will ascend to the divine realm and become part of the divine realm. As for the legendary Xuanhuan Hengja, it is said that it has already evolved into the supreme palace in the 33rd heaven. Daowaji listened to the discussion of the two gods and said in a deep voice, no need to guess, the spirit of heaven we are looking for is in this world. Only when the spirit of heaven devotes all its strength and is watered with the source energy of heaven, can an ordinary star realm reach this level. Hearing this, Divine Lord Xianyi and Divine Lord Jinchi both looked overjoyed. Sir, can you easily find the spirit of heaven this time? They spoke. However, Daowaji shook his head and said, no. This world is very scary. He said solemnly. After entering this world, I can no longer sense the energy of the Tiandao insect. It's as if there is an unimaginable big hand, covering all the secrets of heaven. Divine Lord Xuanyi and Lord Jinchi both looked ugly and said, sir, what should we do? Daowaji thought. Let me go into this world and see if anything extraordinary has happened. He immediately took the 2 divine kings, landed on the earth, and found a sect at random. Not long after, they set off. Muling Dynasty, Yun family. Behind these two forces, there is an unknown powerful man named the Lord of the Wild Sky. It seems that the changes in the entire Great Ruins realm are related to the Lord of Desolate Heaven. Dao Wuji got a lot of information. However, there was an inexplicable sense of depression in his heart. Just hearing the words Lord of the Wild Sky actually made him feel a little uneasy. This place is closest to Zhongzhou, go to Zhongzhou. Soon, Zhongzhou, the Yun family. Good or bad fortune, fortune or misfortune, divine fortune telling, I will tell you everything. I am here to divine fortune for the nobles. Dao Wuji appeared in front of the Yun family and spoke calmly. Where did this magic stick come from? It can roll as far as it goes. In front of the glorious main hall of the Yun family, the strong guard spoke, but before he finished speaking, Dao Wuji had already said calmly. Your Excellency lost his father at the age of 3, married a wife at the age of 21, had a son at the age of 70, lost his son at the age of 80, and is now 135 years old. He has a lifeless face and has committed a fire disaster. If you persist in your obsession and go crazy while practicing, you will be right in front of your eyes. The guard was shocked when he heard this. Because, this magic stick is correct. You are. He spoke in shock. Your clan is facing a great calamity. Go and report it as soon as possible. Dao Wuji spoke calmly. The strong man didn't stop, turned around and ran towards the palace. Sir, why bother to go through so much trouble to just wipe out this clan and conduct a soul search? We already know everything. Divine Lord Xuanhuan spoke. If you want to die, don't involve me. Dao Wuji spoke coldly and said. I think this clan has some causes and effects that I can't see clearly. I must act cautiously to avoid being contaminated by something I can't afford to offend. Hearing this, the two gods fell silent. At this moment, the guard of the Yun family who had just left had already walked out behind an old man. Elder Yunming, the other party is really effective. The guard explained as he walked, but the old man's face was gloomy, obviously unhappy. Seeing the old man walking out, Dao Wuji said directly. It doesn't matter if you don't believe me, but your children all died in the war 3 years ago, leaving only a 4-year-old grandson who is seriously ill. The doctor has told you that he will not live for 30 days, and you don't care. Yunming didn't utter a single word, but he was stunned when he heard his calculations so accurately. Your Mightiness. Dao Wuji said. The nobles are in great trouble. I want to see the noble clan leader. Please lead the way. Yunming's expression changed, but he did not dare to delay and reported immediately. Not long after, they were on top of the Yun family's main hall. Sir, this is the leader of our clan. Yunming led Dao Wuji forward. Yun Yinshan was already waiting. At this moment, he spoke lightly and said. Sir, are you saying that our clan is facing a great calamity? However, when Dao Wuji raised his eyes, he was suddenly shocked and said in silence. Yunshan, the genius of God's domain. No, you were changed by someone. Dao Wuji's pupils shrank as if he had seen a ghost. When Yun Yinshan suddenly heard this, his face changed with shock. He looked at Dao Wuji and said. Your Excellency, are you from God's realm? His heart suddenly sank, and he glanced at Dao Wuji and the others, only to find that even though he was already the God Lord, he couldn't see through the realm of the three of them. These are 3 powerful men above God Lord. God. There is actually a lower realm of the Divine Lord in the Divine Realm. He suddenly became alert. Dao Wuji, on the other hand, stared at Dao Wuji, counting with his fingers. His face is getting more and more ugly. That's not right. In the past, the Lin family in the Divine Realm asked me to take action and looked at your destiny. You will rarely achieve great achievements in this life, and you will die in the lower world, How could it be possible? He was really too surprised. He will never forget that when the prodigy Yun Chen fell in love with Lin Xuanhuan, the daughter of the Lin family, he was not tolerated by the Lin family. In the end, someone from the Lin family took action to kill Yun Chen. Yun Chen almost died, but Lin Xuanhuan took his life and forced the Lin family to let Yun Chen live. But the Lin family is by no means easy to deal with. When they released Yun Chen to the lower realm, they asked the god of heaven and fortune to take action to calculate Yun Chen's life. During that fortune telling, it was clear that Yun Chen was not going to die soon, and he was about to die and would be buried in the lower world. It was precisely because of this that the Yun family did not continue to pursue Yun Chen, who was already dead anyway. But now I see Yun Chen again in the Great Ruins realm, and his fate has completely changed. Not only has his cultivation reached the level of a god lord, but Yun Chen's fate is like a bright moon dormant and a divine sun hidden in it, which is a sign of rising into the sky. Someone changed his destiny for him. Dao Wuji was shocked. This was simply unbelievable. Changing one's fate against the will of heaven is a truly forbidden technique. Even those in their lineage of divine calculations would not dare to do this. At the same time, a sudden flash of inspiration flashed in Dao Wuji's heart. The person who changed Yun Chen's fate against the will of heaven, and the person who destroyed the heavenly Dao insect. It's most likely the same person. He immediately looked at Yun Yinchen, suddenly stepped forward, and reached out to grab Yun Yinchen. Yun Yinchen's expression changed, and he was about to take action immediately. However, the next moment, he was pinned down on the chair by a big hand, unable to move. Divine Lord Xuanyi has already taken action. Yun Yinchen looked ugly and said, "You." Dao Wuji swiped his nails from Yun Yinchen's palm and got a drop of Yun Yinchen's blood. What Dao Wuji was performing at this moment was the technique of blood acting. In the calculation of divine fortune, fortune telling, bone touching, fortune telling, etc. are not all foolproof, and may sometimes be interfered with. But in the art of blood acting, everything can be seen from the blood, and many secrets cannot be hidden. This technique is a forbidden technique, and Dao Wuji will not use it unless absolutely necessary. But now he was too confused and had to use this to find answers. But soon, the drop of blood evaporated. It seems that there is no room for deduction. You have a daughter. Dao Wuji suddenly looked at Yun Yinchen. This was the only useful information he got from the blood acting technique. However, when Yunchen was sent to the lower realm, he didn't calculate that Yunchen had a daughter. But now from the blood, it is clear that Yun Chen has a daughter, and that daughter should be the one that Yun Chen had when he was in the lower realm. Could it be that he was born to Yunchen and the daughter of the Lin family? Why couldn't I figure it out back then? His heart skipped a beat, and he suddenly realized that Yun Chen's daughter could actually deceive Tianji. Is the reason why Yun Chen's fate changed because of this female doll? Could it be that he actually encountered the legendary Fanghui fate? Fanghui fate pattern: destiny is outside the square, not under the jurisdiction of heaven in the world, you are born to be a transcendent one. This kind of destiny is rare to see in the ages. In their records of divine arithmetic, Fanghui's destiny is extremely precious, and is known as the most suitable destiny for practicing arithmetic. Because this kind of fate is not afraid of divine punishment. For a moment, a thought suddenly flashed through Dao Wuji's mind. If we could find Yun Chen's daughter, replace her with others, and steal her fate as his own, then you will be invincible. You need to know why he risked his life to come to the Great Ruins realm. It is because if the last spirit of heaven is not caught out and destroyed, the cause and effect will continue, and he will be punished by heaven in the future. But if he gets Fanghui fate, he doesn't even care about the cause and effect of heaven. Not to mention being threatened by the Bodhisattva removing dust, he can come and go as he pleases. Thinking of this, he felt extremely greedy. He immediately stared at Yun Yinchen and said, "Tell me, where is your daughter? Hand over your daughter, otherwise, your entire Yun family will die today. He threatened in a cold voice. Good night.